Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time.
Hi, I'm not Charlie Chaplin. I'm Mark Hoffman, proud member of the Conversations Across Time team, but I do play Charlie Chaplin on tonight's show. On the panel along with me are Paul Robeson, African-American entertainer, artist, activist, All-American football player, and Roy Cohn, the attorney for Joseph McCarthy during the anti-communist witch hunts during the 1950s. Tonight's show is The Stain of Treason and The Smell of Treason, talking about the Trump administration and the people in that administration that may be committing treasonous acts. Please stay tuned for a provocative and stimulating show. Also, visit our website, www.conversationsacrosstime.com.
Good evening. Welcome to Conversations Across Time. My name is Vivian Crawford, and seated next to me, which would be on your right, my left, is my co-host who's always here, former Pennsylvania State Representative Babette Joseph. Babette, welcome. I think we're going to have fun tonight.
Always on the left.
Always on the left. Exactly. And so our guests tonight are seated next to Babette is Mr. Roy Cohn. And for those of you that are frequent watchers of this show, frequent viewers, you know that Mr. Roy Cohn is an attorney who gained fame. Perhaps his most fame was gained as the counsel to Senator McCarthy during the Red Scare days. And so welcome to you, Mr. Roy Cohn.
Yeah, whatever.
Seated next to Mr. Cohn is the well-known, probably premier figure when you talk about the history of comedic acting, and a person that is just very dear to the hearts of anyone who is serious about free speech, and that is Mr. Charlie Chaplin. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Chaplin. And we're so happy that you're speaking tonight.
Yes.
And there is an empty chair, as you will note, next to Mr. Chaplin for another guest who was invited to participate tonight, and quite frankly, we don't know if he's going to appear here, and that is because he was in Syria giving a speech about policies and government, and is detained at the airport, and that is Mr. Paul Robeson.
Government of the United States pays lip service to liberty, but has seen no reason to stop
Spying on everybody.
limiting that liberty. The governments in various countries in the world are not without flaws. They're just vary by which values they excel in and in which they fail. The period of time in which Roy Cohn operated most actively in the United States government is one of the darkest times in the history of our great country. But we did not survive that period of time without learning valuable lessons about how to proceed and how to limit power in the future.
You think we really learned lessons?
We learned those lessons. Whether we have been able to put them into practice is a matter of
Another
some
question.
doubt.
If he comes in while we're shooting, we'll be happy to welcome him into this conversation, but we're concerned as to whether or not he's going to get here, if he'll be released by the officials at the airport. So tonight's topic is the smell of treason, the stain of treason. We are today in a very interesting time, and which is why we've invited the guest that we have. And that is because Mr. Cohn, who was very active in the Red Scare when people in this country were turning against each other and neighbors were turning to neighbors, and there was a fear that the communists were coming to get us. And so that's what Mr. Cohn is here to represent. And what's interesting about Mr. Cohn is that in his later life, he was the mentor and one of the people that he trained and brought into the public arena was a client of his, and that client was a man that we now call Mr. President, and that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is your creation.
That's right. He's your president. You better remember that if you want to live.
Phew.
It sounds just like you sounded when you were the chief counsel for Joseph McCarthy and you were persecuting my fellow actors and myself for being...
Teachers, anybody.
Yes.
Hey,
And-
get in line, okay? Just remember, get in line.
Well, here's what's interesting, and that's one of the things that we want to talk about. We want to explore with you, Mr. Cohn.
Okay.
Because you, as a person who was particularly active in making certain that the communists, the Russians, were chased out of this country. They were dogged and treated so unfairly by Senator McCarthy, Senator Joseph McCarthy, when you were his lead counsel. And you were 24 years of age at the time. And I'm hoping that as a result of tonight's discussion, because at 24 years of age, sometimes people make mistakes. And perhaps you may have some regret for some of the decisions. I'm hopeful that perhaps you may have some regret for the creation of what we now have as the President of the United States, and that's Mr. Donald Trump. And perhaps some of the things that you did as a young man you may feel challenged by now. Mr. Chaplin, as an artist, you were dogged by Roy Cohn and his buddy, J. Edgar Hoover. They actually, in 1952, I believe it was, you traveled. First of all, you were a citizen of the
England.
UK.
Yes.
And you were denied re-entry to the United States.
Because of Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Hoover, and
Yeah, me.
reprehensible Roy. But
Yeah,
Reprehensible rule.
that's
Right,
right.
yeah, that's-
Remember that. And make sure your ass doesn't get back into this country,
And-
Chucky, baby.
yes, but the point is, don't you feel it's total irony?
Irony,
That
what
that
irony?
you persecuted everyone for being pro-Russian, pro-Soviet, and now you're the man you tutored, the man you schooled.
protege.
His protege is in the pocket of the Russian dictator. Don't you find that totally ironic, Mr. Cohn?
What ironic. It's circumstantial evidence, nothing proven.
Well,
Nothing
yeah.
proven. Nothing
Well,
proven.
I think, Ms. Crawford, we all have some evidence that there is collusion between your buddy's administration and the Russian oligarchs and
The campaign and the administration.
and the campaign and the administration and Mr. Putin, President Putin.
Hey, first of all, I gotta give props to Putin, okay? I mean, he doesn't take shit from guys trying to overthrow him. I
Right,
mean,
he just
he
murders
he knocks him down.
Well,
He knocks him down.
He murders them.
Yeah, oh
he
yeah.
knocks them down. How about throws them out of windows?
Oh yeah, that
Hasn't
does
shot-
happen. Yeah, that
hasn't
does
shot
happen to
in front of
guys
the Kremlin?
that stand up to him, and it might give me some ideas what I might do to you motherfuckers.
How
Well-
about his ban on homosexuals, Mr.
Hey,
Cohen?
gotta bring that up, huh?
Yeah,
What's that
I
got
did
do
have
with
to
me?
bring that up.
Yeah.
He would,
Well, bring up.
he would
You
have you.
helped.
He would have you put in prison immediately
For
for
what?
your homosexual behavior.
Hey, don't throw that at me, okay?
Wait a
That's
minute.
all. That's all.
No.
We don't talk about it. That's off the
Okay,
table. Off the
Mr.
table.
Cohn, Mr. Cohn,
What?
what Mr. Chaplin brings up is particularly interesting because in today's day and age, and you're visiting us across time, so we are pleased that you're here. Nobody gives a flying hoot as to what your sexual practices were. We don't care. But the interesting thing about you is because you were so self-loathing.
You
when
care.
Oh, self-loathing for what?
You
when
care.
your boyfriend did not get, was it David Shine? Was that his name? When your boyfriend
Friend,
didn't-
not boyfriend, okay?
well,
Your boyfriend.
your boyfriend that lived in the same house with you and you all had sex together, so I don't know what you call
Yeah.
him. But at any rate, because he didn't get an appointment, and I'm vague on the facts here. I believe it was an appointment. He wanted to be appointed to the White House to work within the White House dealing with Army security. And when he did not get the post, You took out a vendetta against the entire U.S. military, which is not unlike what we see your protege, Donald Trump, doing. But his...
He got no, look, Donnie got no vendetta against the military. I mean,
not
he loves
only
the
that,
military.
not only that, you persecuted me for supposedly being the father of an illegitimate child with an underage woman, which was I was found not
It
guilty.
wasn't his child.
Right.
Everyone knew you're a hell of a whore master in Hollywood.
Talk about the whore masters.
Right,
How about the one in Washington?
Exactly.
Hey, Donnie, hey, I have every confidence in Donnie, and you guys better do
You
the
and
same.
no
But
one
I
else.
still think it's ironic that
You and the son-in-law.
that all the things that happened in the election campaign and that are currently going on between your buddy Trump's administration and the Russians is totally the opposite of the way you and Joe McCarthy
We're
thought.
chasing.
So the treasonous acts the treasonous acts you accuse me of, even though I wasn't a citizen, and the treasonous acts you accused Mr. Robeson of, who can't even get back into the country today. He's probably stuck in Syria because of your buddy's stupid ban,
Let him stay there.
right? All those treasonous things would apply doubly to what the Trump administration is doing vis-a-vis the policy of President Putin in terms of the Crimea and warm water.
Putin and Trump are in bed together, and you should be concerned about that because
Yes,
your mission was to make sure that didn't happen.
Exactly.
and
That's
exactly
total
what
irony.
you-
I agree
Yes.
with you
And
100%.
that's the irony.
Ms. Joseph.
Exactly.
Hey,
Now let me...
Look. Donnie's a deal maker. He can cut deals with Putin. That's Donnie's.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
He can cut deals with Putin.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, and I hope I get it right, but the spirit of it is, if you dance with the devil, he gets to pick the tune. And Putin, your boy Donnie is dancing with Putin, who is far over and beyond Donnie's capabilities. Putin is a former KGB. Putin is a strategist. We did a show last year, I believe, and the title of the series was Warm Water, where we talked about the fact, and in fact, Mr. Dostoevsky, there is the notion that Vladimir Putin is a madman. That's what's being painted to us as the American public, and I would just like to hear from you as a Russian, exactly how you perceive Vladimir Putin.
First of all, let me say that Vladimir, President Putin, thinks I am the greatest author. I'm his favorite author. And to understand Vladimir Putin, you need to understand Russian history. The one thing that us Russians and Mother Russia has always wanted is a warm water port. We were a landlocked country. We could not get out to sea because for 8 months of the year, our northern ports were icebound. So our history from Peter the Great, Alexander I, Alexander II, to President Putin has been to secure entrance into the Mediterranean through a warm water port, which would mean going through the Black Sea, past Turkey, through the Straits of the Dardanelles Straits and the Bosphorus Straits to the Mediterranean so we could trade. So Mr. Putin's movement in the Crimean and his movement in the Ukraine is part of Russian history, part of Mother Russia's attempt to secure a warm water port. The Western world, Europe, the United States, Mr. Dulles, the French, the British have always tried to stymie us, and that's what's going on right now.
And talked about the fact that Russia's interest has always been to have access to the Atlantic trade routes. And how do they gain that? They gain it through the Ukraine. So let's talk, if we can, about the Ukraine and exactly what your boy Donnie is doing, because it does appear to us that there is a movement on behalf of the Trump administration to do away with the sanctions imposed by President Obama.
Well,
And
he's got,
because
Donnie's
of
going to
the
cut. Donnie's going to cut a better
invasion
deal
of-
with Putin.
In
What better
fact,
deal?
A better deal. Trust him.
if your
What?
protege,
What?
Ducky Trump, was the foreign minister of Russia, he couldn't do a better job of facilitating Russian foreign policy than they're doing right now. They got the Ukraine. The
Yes.
sanctions are going to get
They've got a
lifted.
plank in the Republican platform
Right,
that is
that-
does not condemn them for
Right,
their
that was the only plank that
invasion
you
of-
and your people wanted. I made a movie. It was a great movie, satirizing Adolf Hitler, and people loved the movie. If I were to remake that movie today, I would shave my mustache, take
Make
my
it
hat
orange.
off, paint my face orange, and make it about you and call it about your boy Trump and call it the Great Fabricator.
instead of, and for our audience, you need to know that the seminal, I think one of the, what we view as the seminal example of the genius of Charlie Chaplin was the film in which he satirized Adolf Hitler, and it was called The Great Dictator.
You even look like Hitler.
Yes, and for those in the audience,
Short,
if you
too.
haven't seen that film, it's a classic. It's something that you must see. But the point of it is the Great Fabricator, because that is exactly what Trump is. Hitler was the great dictator, and Trump is the great fabricator. And when we use
And
the
you
term
taught him
great-
that, Roy.
Hey,
You
what?
taught him that. You taught him to lie. You
I didn't tell him nothing. I
Yes,
just
you
told him
did.
how to work the system to his benefit, and he's done it. He's done it.
Well-
I mean, he cuts business deals. He cut business deals with the
What-
courts. He'll do it with Putin.
When your boy
What
Joe
courts?
McCarthy said there are 96 communists in the State Department, it was an out-and-out lie. It's the same thing Trump does
Yes.
when Trump said that President Obama had him wiretapped. It's the same kind of lie that you and your buddy Joe McCarthy said about there are 96 members of the Communist Party infiltrated our State Department. It's the same kind of lie.
Hey, it worked back in 1950.
But
okay?
That's the
Hey,
scary
you
part.
need-
That's the scary part, man.
You know that you need a public scare in order to get the people
Well-
scared so that you can control them. Get
Wait,
rid of
wait, wait.
get rid of bleeding heart liberals contaminating our government. That's been the whole point, and that's what we're going. Donnie's going to do now.
But I want to make certain I
Blah,
understand.
blah, blah.
I want to make certain I understand you, because you see, the United States of America is a republic. We have people that go to the polls, and we actually vote for the representatives that we put them in place so that they
And
can
we
represent our
actually
interests.
think that they work for us.
And that's, yeah.
They think, well, that's what we think.
So
Then you better find out who they really
But-
work for.
Oh no, and that's what I
Oh,
want. That's what
we
I
know
want to
that.
illuminate, because you just said something that I think it's worth us discussing.
What?
And you said in order to control the people. So are you saying to the audience tonight that your tutelage of Donald Trump and your protege Donald Trump and your expert advice that was passed upon him was to understand how to control the people of the United States? Because that's a very profound statement. I want to make sure that we're clear, and I want to make sure that our audience hears it. So would you, because you said it in a rage and in an emotional rage, but we heard it. You heard it, Babette. You heard it, Mr. Chaplin. Our audience heard it. So you've actually demonstrated exactly what our problem is, because you've taught your boy that control of the population of the United States is his end goal. Now, I want to be clear. I don't want the jury to miss that.
Right. Look, it's worked. Right. Like I
Not
said,
yet.
we eliminate all the bleeding heart liberals from the government. That's
That
one
you
thing
did.
we want to do. That's been our goal forever. That's always going to be our goal. And Donnie's, well, I gotta say this about Donnie. I love Donnie, but he's lazy and he doesn't really want to do the
He's
job.
not very smart, is he?
Well,
Well, so he was-
he's not very He's not big. Okay,
Well, no,
he's not a
that's
scholar.
very
He's not a
honest.
scholar.
That's very honest, and we appreciate that when you say that he's lazy, because I think that was probably part of the problem with the health bill that they weren't able to get through. He didn't even know what was in it.
Well, he can't read.
Well-
And apparently he couldn't listen to anybody explaining it to him because he
Well,
was too impatient.
I-
Too
well,
busy running off to tweet to something
Roy,
else.
let me ask you this.
What, Chuck?
Well, all the people you called before the McCarthy hearings
House
and,
Un-American Activities
and
Commission.
UVAC,
HUAC.
and you called them traitors. You literally called me, and I don't know how you could call me a traitor. I wasn't a citizen, but Paul Robeson, many of the Hollywood artists that were
Teachers
my
of all
friends,
kinds, intellectuals.
intellectuals. You called them traitors. Now, here's the question I have for you, sir.
What?
Based on all the evidence that we can trace, meetings with Russian
yes.
diplomats, people on your boy Trump's payroll who were paid enormous figures to promote the goals of Putin.
Changing the Republican
Russia,
platform.
changing the Republican platform. If Joe and you were around today, would they be considered treasonous activities? Would you charge them with treason with the same vigor and the same?
Would you prosecute them?
Right.
Hell no, I wouldn't prosecute him. Hey, look,
Well, what is the difference? We just
Between what
spoke
they
out
did.
against some of the evils of American society. They colluded with a foreign power, and you would charge us with treason and let them skate.
of course I would. Hey, they're part of the ruling elite. Donnie and
Paul
Joey.
Manafort, Steve
Yeah,
Bannon,
the whole gang,
Michael
the whole
Flynn,
thing.
Michael
yeah.
Flynn.
Page,
and,
Roger
and Goldman
Stone,
Sachs. Yeah,
Goldman
the-
Sachs.
Yeah, the whole gang of them.
Goldman
They're part
and
of the ruling,
Sachs, Sachs
a
and
ruling
Goldman.
elite that's determined to stay in power, and the way to do that is to scare the crap out of the people.
So if you can't scare them with communists, you scare them with ISIS.
Muslims.
Hey,
And you know what?
whatever.
The
whatever.
Muslims, thank you, Mr. Chaplin. The Muslims have become the new communists. In
And
terms
the
of
new
their,
Italians, we had Italians that were going to come here and murder us all.
Oh, yes.
That's why we did in Zacco and Vanzetti.
yes.
They didn't do anything except be Italian.
The Irish, yeah. Don't forget the Irish. The Irish got it too.
Okay, but so here's what I want to.
So
And of
Well,
course,
every second
even though you
there's a
yourself
new
were
villain.
Jewish,
Hey,
I know
don't
you,
bring that up.
I know you don't like that,
You're
but even though you were Jewish,
Hey, I am not self-loathing. I
You-
didn't
you-
ask to be a Jew. Okay.
you left.
That's off
You
the
didn't
table.
ask
That's off
to
the
be
table.
gay.
Well, you
either.
you kind of in
Just
some
happens.
of your questioning, you kind of made it clear that if you were a liberal Jew, you were automatically a communist, and you almost associate.
Well, they are when you scratch the surface.
So
again,
that's the
another
same type of
statement.
scapegoating that's going on now, and it's really
Yes.
funny. You condone
But-
treasonous activity by this administration if it's
It's
proven.
not treason. It's business making. It's deal making.
So
With an enemy of the United
right.
States.
So the fact that we spoke out against racial
America's
injustice that
enemy.
I did, and hopefully Mr. Robeson will be
please.
here later, that was treasonous. But colluding with a foreign enemy of the nation is business as usual. That's pretty
Hey.
good.
So long as it's some friend of yours, huh, Mr. Cohn, it's okay.
So
Hey,
that's okay. So, Mr. Cohn, I understand. I understand. In 1986, you passed,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about the spawn of your
Evil mating.
yes, of your evil mating. Thank you. I was trying to come up with a nice way. Yes, I want to talk about this one. Let's talk about
How much
Paul.
you saying I?
Let's talk about Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort, who made a deal with Putin, made a deal with an oligarch on behalf of Putin that he would infiltrate and insinuate Putin into the psyche of the United States, and that they would impact on all areas of United States politics. And we now know without question, because how many agencies, how many intelligence agencies have said this?
All of them. All of them.
All of them except your protege who refuses to accept the results, have said that Putin, even if they don't want to go so far as to say that the reason that Donald Trump is president and not Hillary Clinton is because of their infiltration and their influence. But the point of it is, there is no question that Russia interfered with this past presidential election and had an impact on it. Now, there are those of us who believe, like, I know I'm always to the far left, that believe that but for the interference of Russia in the presidential election, the 2016 presidential election, Donald Trump would not be president. Now, my question to you is, in light of all of these things that we know to be true, how do you explain how openly your guys are doing this? Paul Manafort in 2005 entered this agreement that he was going to infiltrate the politics on behalf of Russia.
Of course,
and
it was
it's been
supposed
done.
to be off the books. They didn't really expect that to show up the way it did,
But
and when
I
it
truly
did.
believe
Hey, I don't
that-
know what Manafort's doing. I mean, Donnie talks to Manafort, not to me, so I can't say anything about Manafort. You
Yeah,
have
but-
to talk to Downey about it.
Yeah, but
He'll
Righty,
have time with you.
Righty Roy, here's the thing.
What?
Right.
Here's the thing. You taught Ducky, Donald Trump, you taught Ducky to win at all costs. And if you were around today, you would condone collusion with the Russians to win the election.
Sure.
You probably think it's perfectly all right, even though it's treasonous and it goes against the long-range national interest of the country. Not because Trump was elected, because any interference in our electoral process puts a dagger in the heart of democracy.
Exactly.
So therefore, I think even though you're dead now, you should be tried for treason because of the way you mentored and schooled Donald Trump. I truly believe that he knows it, and he's perfectly all right with it. It's win at all costs.
Hey,
It
Work for
doesn't care about what happens to this country.
Or any of the people in it.
Exactly.
Well,
I
he
don't
cares
care.
about only one person.
what's wrong with that? Hey, that's
That's
why
what
I
you
built this
taught him,
country.
don't
I
you?
made this
About
country
Don't you?
great.
Cohn.
It's exactly what we're trying to say here. You taught him this. You taught him this traitorous behavior, and you condone it. Don't you feel ashamed that that's what you mentored him in?
Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Let the liberals do the moralizing.
I thought on your
We-
deathbed
we
you
did-
regretted some of the things you did after you were dying with AIDS.
Hey, enough of the queer stuff. Hey, don't talk about
But
it.
see, this is the thing that I said to you earlier.
What?
We don't view that as queer. We view the expressions of sexuality as being expressions of sexuality. I know that 1986
neutral.
you made it, but we don't care.
We don't care.
Whoever you sleep with is your business.
Right, but
Right. So why do you keep bringing it up?
No, I didn't
Because
bring
you
it up
persecuted.
because of that. I brought it up because you were on your deathbed and you recanted some of the things you did. You regretted them. So we're asking you, do you regret the way you taught Trump? You could have taught him to be a great
Decent
man, to be
person.
a magnanimous person, to be a humanist.
You could have taught
Magnanimous
him to
people
be
don't get to the top
honest
of
and
corporations.
honest business person.
No such thing. You
So
better remember that.
are you viewing Donald Trump, your protege Donald Trump, as running now the biggest business enterprise of his career?
Of course he is. Hey,
The
that's
United
what
States
government's
government.
for.
The United States government is the biggest business enterprise of his career.
Yeah.
He's
So-
also
so you-
running the biggest treason machine.
Yeah, exactly. And you agree that it's okay for
Of
him
his
to have
career
his
and
son-in-law
of our
as
history.
an advisor and his daughter as an advisor.
Happens all the time.
Well, I'm
Well, it's
happy
like
that you said
it's like
that.
the Romanovs, and you know what
Yes.
happened to them.
Yes. Yes.
Lost their heads.
Yes.
Yes. And by who's the instrument of doing that? What was the entity? that
People
was the
got
instrument?
tired of them.
Yes, but it was the Communist Revolution.
Yes.
The Communist Revolution is your boy's best friend, your boy's daddy, as I've referred to him on this show. I refer to Putin and Bannon as I don't know which is which. Let me say this. I don't know whether Putin's mommy and Bannon's daddy, or Bannon's, I don't, Bannon's mommy, I don't know. But that couple that spawned Donald Trump. You're not to rest. You cannot rest because there's so much more we have to do. And we will see you next week. And Mr. Cohn, Mr. Chaplin, and Babette, and maybe by that time Mr. Robeson has gotten his passport situation straightened out, and they've released him. And maybe by then he can join us. This has been Conversations Across Time. Thank you.